Okay.
And I love it already because with the phones, they were like, you had to have your phone like right here. So you're both videoing and the live chat is scrolling over your face at the same time.
Oh,
And
no.
it was a lot to keep up on.
You need 4
So,
hands to do that.
yeah. Yeah. So now it's like I have the live is on the right hand side, or sorry, the chat's on the right, and I can see people joining and hello, Larry and Ben, nice to see you. And Herman, thanks for joining. So I can write messages and we can do things off to the side instead of right in front. So
That's great.
I love this new uh um improvement.
That's
Definitely an
wonderful.
improvement. So
Yeah. And, I think that's one of the things that I like so much about Substack. Well, 2 things. One is they are continuing to make changes and to update things. They're not
yeah,
just resting on their laurels. And 2, that I have access to someone like you, my Substack coach, to help me when I have questions or if I am asking you if something is like, should I do this? And you can, because you know me and we've worked together, you're like, that's not really going to make a difference for you. But this over here, I definitely do that. So I
yeah.
really appreciate that.
Yeah, and, like, you reached out about the, drip campaign emails, and I was like you're like, "Do you know about this?" I'm like, "Yeah, but they're still in beta, so no one can use them yet."
I just was
'Cause
astonished because I didn't know they were even considering drip campaigns.
yeah,
And I'm in 2 food writers groups because that's what I do. And someone just said, "Ooh, they're much bigger than me." So they apparently they've received an invitation to the beta. And
right.
so it was like,
Okay.
wow.
Yeah,
And then apparently
unfortunate.
there's some recipe card thing coming too.
Okay. Yeah, there's quite a few recipe blogs on Substack because there's no, it doesn't have the ads, right? And so the readers are really loving the Substack version,
Mhm.
and so the writers are moving to Substack as well. And so they're going to do some special things for recipe writers is really cool. I like
Yay.
that. So, yeah, yeah, that's really great. So, yeah, I am just going to send a quick message here
Oh,
and
Casey's here and Elizabeth is here. I know a couple of these people. Hey, friends. So fun.
yeah, and I think we can probably get started right away here.
Okay.
Um We've got a few people joining, and Casey says, "Hi, Mira." And thank you everyone for joining today. Okay, so today is all about Mira and her content calendars. Mira's been doing this. How long have you been doing newsletters for, Mira?
Since
If you don't mind sharing.
2005.
2005. I was gonna put 2003 in one of my email reminders that I sent out, and then I was like, I don't remember the exact year, but I was close.
You were. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's funny because the newsletters have changed so much over the years. So when I first started in 2005, it was in the years of, AOL, boop, 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 you've got mail. And, and we were sending things out, but I was sending them very irregularly. I didn't have structure or content form to what I was doing. And it was more just like, hey, this is what I'm doing. And then over the years, as it became more and more structured and I started to grow my audience, I really discovered that newsletters are actually a pretty powerful way to communicate with your
Yeah.
your audience.
Yeah. No, that whole getting the email list and being able to send out the newsletters, and the thing I like about Substack is that it combines the blog, right?
Mhm.
So, trying to do a WordPress blog, which I did in the old days of WordPress blogging, it was fun. Now it's, so polished and fancy, and it takes forever. It takes, like, 3 times as long as it
Mhm.
does on Substack. So, it's really nice that it's all kind of packaged together and sent out, so it makes it easier, but then you lose some of the formatting and things like that, so you have to adjust, I guess.
You do, however, I will share, I still have my blog at theingredientguru.com. It's still there. I am doing other things behind the scenes that keeps the website like active and,
Mhm.
at the attention of the bots so they know I exist. But I don't write there anymore because for me, it's all about community. And a blog is kind of a one-way street. People can leave you comments, but not everybody will. And then it was the same thing with emails. I used to use, and I won't name them, but I used to use a big email company and have all these things that we were doing. And when I discovered Substack, I actually discovered you first. We had a conversation, which was lovely. And you were able to help me see that I could take what was essentially a static blog and a somewhat static newsletter and bring them into Substack where people can leave comments, people can like, people can share. It's much more of a community, and
Mhm.
that's what I love about it.
Yeah, it's very dynamic as compared to that one-way street from us out to the reader, and this
Yeah.
is more dynamic, which I like. Alright, so let's not take any more time just chatting, although I'm enjoying it, but let's jump into what you have to share with us today about content calendars and the importance of having one and how you go about doing it that has served you well over the past 20 years.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And thank you so much for being here to share because one of the things that delights me about this is I really don't feel we should always have to be reinventing the wheel. And so if I learn something from someone else, that's great. If I can teach that to other people as well, that's even better because then we're sort of all lifting each other up. And this whole journey to systematizing what was going on with my newsletter came from a coach that I was working with years ago, named Mary Agnes Antonopoulos. She's absolutely amazing. And she really helped me look at what I was doing and figure out how to create structure. Because for people who create Substack content, if you're putting it out, most of us have a regular basis. And I mean, because we've worked together in the beginning, when I first came onto Substack, I was so excited that I was emailing my audience 5 times a week. And it was great in the beginning, but then it got to the point where it was really getting overwhelming and I was having a hard time. And we surveyed them, and it turned out they were getting a little overwhelmed too. The interesting thing is the structure and how I was doing things was exactly the same, whether I was doing 5 times a week or what I do now, which is twice a week. So I have one for paid and one for free subscribers. When you have a format for how you do things and you have a structure, it makes it very easy so that you're not sitting there going, "Oh god, the newsletter's due tomorrow. I haven't written anything." Like, I admittedly do write most of it in advance. There's a few things that get done because they're a little more timely or there's, for whatever reason, there are some things that are done just before they go out. But in general, I would say probably 75 to 80% of the newsletter is written in advance. And by having a structure, by knowing the format for my newsletter, it means I know exactly what goes in each section. It means when I see something, I know where it goes and I either slot it into a project management system. I personally use ClickUp to manage my newsletters. There's lots of project management systems out there. There's Trello, Asana, Monday, Notion, like all these different things. You use the one that works for you, but I can take it and put it in there and line it up. So then I can pop it in when I need to. It also means that if I want to shift or change something in the newsletter, I can look at the format and see where it slots in. For example, last year, so I've been on Substack just over a year. Last year, in the last quarter of the year, I decided I wanted to create something that I call the quirky calendar. And basically, that is me finding interesting things that I want to share with people for the month ahead so that they know what fun holidays are coming. And so when I looked at my structure, I could see exactly where it belonged and I put it in my template. So that's the other thing that I recommend people do. If you don't have a newsletter template, that's totally fine. One of the greatest ways to create one is to look at what you've been writing. Maybe it's maybe it's only a month, but maybe it's 3 months or 6 months. I probably wouldn't go more than 6 months just because it's a lot to collate. However, you look at all the newsletters that you've written, and then you basically draw boxes around them. I printed mine out, literally. I had pages and pages and pages, and I took highlighters and I highlighted each section to figure out what is this? You know, how does this information go together? And then that allowed me to create a template. So for me, one of the other amazing tools that I have is called Typinator. Now, Typinator is only for those of us who are on a Mac. I'm so sorry if you're not. There are other tools similar to Typinator for people who are on a PC. Essentially, it is a text expander. That's all you need to know. So if you want to go look for one for PC, you type text expander PC and it'll give you lots of options. They're generally not very expensive. I go into ClickUp to the card for the week, and literally this is what I type. I type Substack asterisk enter, and it goes poof, and it gives me the entire week. I have all of my sections for Tuesday and all of my sections for Friday. There's nothing in them. I just have the sections. And then as I find things as I go through, newsletters or resources or whatever, I'm able to add them in. So that's how I create a template and that's how I create structure so that it is repeatable week after week.
So the Substack or the asterisk Substack, that's linked to the Typinator?
Yes.
Okay.
So I weirdly enough, I come from a database background. At one point in my life, I was a database administrator for an international research firm. And, my story is I got very ill and in the process of reclaiming my health, discovered the power of holistic nutrition. Went back to school, became a nutrition educator, became the ingredient guru, and now that's what I do. But I still have data on
Right,
mine,
right.
And with Typinator, you can create or with any text expander, you can create any chain that you want. However, in order to make it easy to remember and fairly mistake proof free, I personally use an asterisk because I am rarely going to write Substack asterisk. And if I did, because I wanted to use that asterisk as a footnote, there would typically be a space between the word and the asterisk. So by putting that together, it makes an expander. I also have an expander, that says if I'm working with someone and I want to recommend a detox bath for them, literally I write detox bath asterisk and it goes poink and there's the instructions, the ingredients and how to do it. So
Right.
it's a great way to save yourself a lot of typing time.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's already pre-done.
Mhm.
So, can you talk a little bit about what you feel about the importance of, um, being predictable on when you're doing a newsletter?
Mm.
So and both, like, you talk about the structure and the timing. So
Yeah, I think for a lot of people, the more you have something that they know what they're going to get, the easier it is for them to understand why they're there. And, as we shared at the beginning of this, I've been writing a newsletter since 2005. I probably developed my more regular posting and my stronger outreach somewhere around 2012. And I learned pretty quickly that the more consistent I could be, the more people liked it. And to this day, like I will go to conferences and I have people who come up to me, they're like, I love your newsletter.
Mm.
I try to keep it fairly short, 15 minutes or less. And the majority of it is pretty predictable. You know, you're going to get an editorial, you're going to get the food news, you're going to get a video, and then you're going to have some kind of a wrap up. That's the free. If you're paid, you're going to get an editorial. You're going to get what I call footnotes and favorites. And those are other things that people need to know, want to know, that I'm interested in sharing, whatever. And there's a video to go along with that. So it's very straightforward. And then I am learning, because Substack is a little bit of a different animal. In the beginning, I was using the recipes as editorials, and I discovered that that maybe doesn't work quite as well as I would like it to. And so now the recipe is a standalone. It gets published separately, but it gets referenced in the newsletter so that I can tag people over to it. Anybody who happens to be visiting my newsletter who sees, oh, she's published a recipe, they're welcome to go look at it and know that that week or the following week in the newsletter, I'm going to be tagging the recipe as well.
So then instead of sending that recipe out, you just publish it on
Mm.
your site, and then you link to it from the actual newsletter that's sent out.
Yes, I found that that's a lot more effective. I also run something called the Healthy Readers Book Club. So every year we read 6 books that have to do with holistic health, nutrition, wellness, environment, those kinds of things. And right now we're reading Radical Acceptance by Tara Brach, which is a really amazing book. I have a weekly roundup post that I put on Substack. I don't send it anymore. Like, that's one of the ways that I was overwhelming my audience before, because I was sending them an email with that. Now I simply post it. Some people find it, but everybody gets it in the book notes in the newsletter.
Hmm, right. A link to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is a great way to publish that extra content that doesn't fit into your expected schedule and expected format, and
Mhm.
then have people drive people to it. And it's not like, well, I can't do that because my people aren't expecting that.
And it also taps into something you taught me, which is that Substack really likes when you link to your other Substack content. So if
Yeah.
I create something and then I link to it, Substack goes, "Oh, we like that. That's very nice."
Yeah.
Um, so it's a great way to sort of stay in connection.
Yeah. Keep people moving in your own ecosystem.
Yes,
Sure.
exactly.
Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit more about planning? I know you have I've been looking at some of your content calendars. I'm like, I need this.
Yeah, I am very big on trying to at least have a direction that I'm going in. Part of the reason for that is it helps me stay on track, because I can get distracted very easily and go down a rabbit hole. The other is, if I am not clear on what I'm doing, then how is my audience going to know? Like, they're going to be confused. And so I try, for example, to have a theme every month. This month's theme, for example, is gut health. Next month's theme is mindfulness. And that also helps me keep in mind what I'm looking for when I'm thinking about editorials that I'm going to create, or if there are videos that I want to share or other resources that I want to share. It makes it easy. The internet is a fire hose at this point. There's so much information out there that it's very easy to get distracted and overwhelmed. But if I know I'm looking for mindfulness content, when I see it, it's like, oh, I need something for 2 weeks from now. It's going to go in here. Or, oh, I need a little extra bit for this week. And I know that I can include it. So I
Yeah.
have, it's going to look a little weird, but I have this calendar that is a whole year all at once. And I put all the big things on it. I put my
Yeah.
monthly themes on it. It allows me to keep track of everything. So I have that. And then in ClickUp, which again is my project management tool that I use, I have monthly blocks. And so I use those for planning as well. And then I also have admittedly, because I'm at heart, I'm an analog person. I do have a paper planner as well where I keep track of things. And you don't have to do any or all of those. I think it's more about figuring out what works for you. If you're an analog person, you're like, I just want to have a paper planner and put it all there. Great. If you love the idea of a big calendar, do that. If you, I actually taught a class on creating content calendars. And one of the people that I taught, I ran into her a few months later and she showed me this, like, incredible thing that she had built on her phone using the tools on her phone. I'm like, "That's awesome." And she was like,
Mhm.
"You want it?" And I'm like, "It's not gonna work for me because, like, I have a system that works,
Yeah.
but I'm really glad that it works for you," you know?
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. And so you plan almost a year in advance or working towards that?
So I have a yeah, so, Usman Ali asks if I can show the calendar again. Sorry, guys, I
Yes.
know it's very spinny, but here you go. So
Yeah,
that
that's the one that you sent me a link to that I've been like, "Should
yeah.
I? Would I use it? I'm not sure."
And it's not very expensive. I mean, it's less than $100 and it's an
Yeah,
entire year. Now it's a horizontal year, which is great for me because if it was a regular calendar year, then I would be stuck with, months don't line up evenly. So
yeah.
I love it
Oh,
personally.
and sorry to interrupt, but guys, we'll put the links to any calendars and things that Mira shares into the actual post that goes with this recording.
Yeah.
So, you'll be able to find those things without having to Google endlessly. Yeah.
Um, i- so going back to your question,
Yes.
in the fourth quarter of a year, I sit down and plan the upcoming year just to have a general guideline. And then that's, I guess I would call it the shell of what I'm doing. And then the month before, I do a deep dive into the next quarter and I really lay out content ideas, things that I'm thinking about, that kind of stuff. And then I try to work at least 2 to 3 weeks in advance as much as I can. Because I know if I do that, then I mean, a long time ago, there were times where I was not consistent in my publishing schedule just because real life happens, you know?
Yeah.
I was busy raising kids. I had things going on. It's like, "Oh, newsletter was due yesterday. Hmm."
Mhm.
It just didn't happen. I wanted to be more consistent with it, so I realized I needed to back it up. And then it got to the point where it was too tightly overscheduled and there was no room for, like, the little extras that came in, and so I realized, 2 to 3 weeks in advance is great. I can get things laid out and I still have room to go, "Oh, I wanna tuck this in. Oh, this is good," to be able to do more of that. And again, it sounds very vague because I guess I'm talking about my system. Everybody can develop their own system. It starts with knowing what kind of content you're going to do. So, for example, let's back it up and say I'm planning the next 2 weeks of content. And I look at my ClickUp and I see that I have editorials. So I need 4 editorials for 2 weeks because I need one free, one paid. And I see I have all 4 of my editorials, and that's great. I generally don't do the food news as a themed item because the food news is where I talk about what's happening in the world of food. Changes to food, changes to governmental regulations around food, companies changing things, things that I think people need to watch out for because, they just do really silly things like try to convince us that we want to eat bugs or whatever. And some people do eat bugs and that's okay, but I personally don't want to. And so I want to tell you where they're hiding them in your food. Um, that I don't plan in advance. And so I look and I see I need 4 of those per week because no, sorry, I only need 2 of those per week. So I need 4 for a 2-week period of time, and I've only got 3. Well, I subscribe to over 70 industry newsletters a month. So I look and see what I have. Is there something else? I do try to at least tie them together. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And then I know that I need 2 videos, and maybe I have one, maybe I don't. Sometimes I try to use videos I've created. Sometimes I use other people's videos, but looking at that. And then I look to see what's at the bottom of the free section. Do I need book news? Do I need something else? And then usually every week I tell all the free subscribers what are some of the things that are coming up for the paid subscribers in case they see enough things that they're like, man, I really want part of that. And they want to become a subscriber, which is wonderful. I love when they do that. For the paid subscribers, I have the Friday bits, I call it footnotes and favorites. I also have the quirky calendar in there. And then this month I started something where I created a little zine, a little paper booklet that had a whole bunch of wonderful stuff. So those are going to be in there. I have to think in advance. First of all, the zines are handwritten. I literally write them out by hand and draw them 8 pages. So I got to plan that in advance. And then I have to figure out where I'm going to release it in the month. So this is where having a schedule helps. And whether it's a paper schedule or a computer schedule or a Google spreadsheet or whatever you're using, if you know what your pieces and parts are and you know how far out you're delivering, it makes it easier to be able to stay consistent and stay on track so that you can support the people you're connected to.
Right. So, okay, I'm going to back this up and
Okay.
kind of see if I'm following you right here. So, the first step is to kind of to take a look at your newsletters and see like what is my format? Like
Mhm.
what is this predictable format that my subscribers are going to get from me every time I send something, and they will get to rely on that and get to know me that way and get to expect the certain quality of content in this format. So that's
Mhm.
kind of the first step. And then what you do is you look ahead to the coming year and you kind of plan your general rhythm or like
Themes.
themes of the year for the kind of overall monthly things.
Mhm.
And then so you have that in advance, and then about 2 to 3 weeks before that month, you're kind of staying 2 to 3 weeks in advance to fill in any details that are missing that you haven't already come across.
Yes, and you missed one step, which is the
Okay.
month before a quarter. For
Okay.
example, in March, I will be doing a deeper dive into April, May, and June.
Mm, right. And that's where you'll probably find a lot more of your editorials or get them started.
Get them started because they take a while to
Right.
write.
Right, right. Yeah.
But I know what the themes are for them, and then I think about the progression of how I'm sharing that.
Mhm.
And I write essentially a holistic wellness and emergency preparedness kind of thing with recipes and other things. There are other people who have Substacks where, for example, their format is I have a story or a share of some kind about what's going on, and then I want to tell people what book I'm reading and maybe share a recipe. So they have 3 distinct sections and they repeat that all the time, and those things are different, and that's what keeps it interesting and fun, but there's a structure there. People know they're going to get this beautiful story from you or this essay or this thought piece or reporting on something in the news, and then you're going to share what you're reading, and because they're following you, chances are they like the same things you like, and then you're also possibly sharing a recipe. Or I've seen there are others that I follow where they have it broken down so that they are sharing Like, there's this one woman that I follow, and she talks about where she went out to eat, like restaurants that she likes. She talks about what she's knitting because she's a huge knitter, and I like yarn crafts also, and her stuff is always super fun. And then she talks about what she's wearing, like what are her favorite clothes of the season and that kind of thing, and, shares pictures. It's super fun. Uh,
Mhm.
it's about how you communicate with your people and why they're there, why they wanna connect with you.
Yeah, that's good. Um, yeah, so what are the main tools that you think are really important? Like, maybe not necessarily the brand of the specific tools, but what are the main pieces to make the structure and the planning work together? Like, what are kind of your tools that you need in your toolbox to make a newsletter work?
Yeah, and I think that's such a great question. Again, because we're so fortunate to have such a wide variety of tools out there. I do believe everybody needs some kind of a planning system, whether it's paper or digital, whether it's, online, offline, whatever, but just having something that allows you to be able to look at it whenever or wherever you can to see what's coming up or what's going on. So it really helps you stay on track. I think it's important if you are writing on Substack, I truly believe everybody could benefit from a text expander. I I started using it in my business when I was doing consultations with clients. The work that I do is very bio individual because no two people are the same. So we're talking about health and wellness and nutrition and lifestyle, but there are certain aspects of it that are the same for just about everybody. So if I'm telling you that I need you, I just saw you took a sip of it. If I'm telling you that you need to hydrate, chances are I want to tell you the hydration factor, how to determine the proper amount of hydration for your body. I do not need to type that 94,000 times. I just type hydrate asterisk enter and it goes, I love that. Because that's the same for everybody. So it's for repeatable text. That's good. And then I think you need tools or resources or the things that you rely on. Newsletters that you subscribe to, if you're sharing some sort of industry information, obviously that's coming through email. But then for my calendar, for example, for my quirky calendar, there's a couple of calendars that I rely on, and I rely on them to tell me when are the food holidays and when are the health holidays
Right.
so that I can stay on top of that. Are there resources like that that are applicable to you and the audience that you are connected with? So that is sort of another tool, if you will. And then I think another thing that's really important is to have, and how you do it is up to you, but I also have reminders to myself that I put, and these are on paper, but to remember to be fun. One of the things that I love about Substack is I can talk about things that are not just nutrition, which sometimes is kind of cut and dried and maybe not that fascinating. I like to think I can make it interesting because I've been doing this for years and I find it amazing and I love sharing. Uh, but I also want to remember to have fun with it. And Substack lets you do that because we have this flexibility. So, maybe I'm sharing the book club, for example, and sharing thoughts and resources or whatever. And I can be a little silly with something and share a cartoon or a funny video or whatever. And then I get to loop it back in. So having notes to yourself about some of those other things that you want to share as well. I mean, I think the more real we are and the more we remember to open ourselves up to be like human and make mistakes and do silly things, the more our audience is going to connect with us because they like it too. And
Mhm.
sometimes you need a reminder. So like I'll share with you, this is going to sound really silly. I have my planner. This is my little note sheet about some of the things that I do. So and it's like, this is talking about mindfulness and silly and wellness and share something you love and share something funny about food. Like literally this, I see this every week because it's in my planner so that it sits in the middle, and I can't share that on screen because it's got confidential names in it. But it sits there and it reminds me to do those things. Like I think those little tools are great. And maybe for you it's a sticky note, or maybe it's, something on your desk blotter. I don't know, but those kind of notes I think are helpful also to help you do those things that have meaning for you that could also be supportive to the audience you're connecting with.
Mhm.
Oh, and Leslie says, I've learned what a text expander is. Now I'm thinking more about what my format is. That's good. Yay. I'm so
Yeah,
happy to hear
great.
that.
Yeah, it's a good blend of that you have that structure that's kind of what holds the content, and the content is what connects with the audience, right?
Yeah.
So, having those 2 things together is really, uh, helpful.
The structure is like the container.
Mhm.
So and I will say I feel personally, and I could be wrong, but I feel personally a lot of people like to know what they're getting. Like if they come check me out, if they don't subscribe, but they follow the check it out first button and they go through, they see what's there. And I try to be pretty much a what you see is what you get kind of person.
Mhm.
There is nothing wrong with being completely random all the time. I think, however, that makes it hard for people to understand what you're about or why they should connect with you. And so having that container means you know what you're doing, and the the ability that Substack offers you to shift, to put in a recipe here, a book review there, an article over here, a fun essay, whatever, and loop it back in means that you can still do all those other things, but the core of what you do remains consistent. And if it's repeatable, like here's the other big reason for this, Adrienne. When I first started back in like 2012, getting serious about my newsletter and writing it all the time, it took hours, like days, because there was a lot. First of all, technology was not as great as it is now, but it was so much because I had to think about it every single time.
Right.
Somewhere around 2017, I think, is when Mary Agnes first came into my life. No, it was 2014 she first came in. Wow, it's a long time ago. Um, And she was like, the more consistent you can make it, the easier you make it on yourself. And I started learning how to do that. It was kind of baby steps. It was probably 2017 when I really started to dial it in. The more consistent you can make it, the faster it goes. Writing is still writing. If I write a 600-word article, it's going to take me almost the same amount of time every time, unless I need to add in some research time. But like writing is writing, it just happens. But to not have to think about what I'm writing, that saves me a lot of time. To not have to think about
Right.
how I'm laying things out on the page. I don't have to rearrange the page. This is not a newspaper. This is not a magazine. Things are not different. But like, my format is the same every week and makes it easier for me, makes it faster for me, makes it very easy for my audience to know what they're going to get.
Yeah. That's good. So, what else can you share with us about, like, content calendars? What are your any thoughts or tips that you think are really important for us to take with us today?
Yeah. So I love content calendars. I think they're great. They make your life so much easier. Obviously, I am in the world of holistic health and nutrition. So for me, it's about food and health and that sort of thing in terms of the calendars that I tap into. I am pretty sure, although I've never, looked that deeply for them, but let's say you write about pets. I'm sure there's some kind of pet holiday calendar out there that tells you, "Oh, it's National Goldfish Day," or, these kinds of things. If that's your like, find the calendar that fits what you do and then use it for content, either because you're gonna write about it or you're going to connect to something else that talks about it. For example, if it's National Cabbage Month, I'm going to add a link to a recipe that I wrote that has to do with cabbage. Uh, if it's so there's actually one coming up, and again, it's in the Quirky calendar, so it is for paid subscribers. But there is a holiday coming up called National Sword Swallowers Day, and there is a very good reason why I'm writing about it because it's in the newsletter, and so I tapped into it. It's a quirky holiday, and I happen to have a very good reason why I connected to it, but I wouldn't have known about it if I hadn't looked up, these kinds of things. If you happen to focus on a particular health condition, let's say you're someone who focuses on migraine health, and that's what you share with your audience. There are headache holidays. There are holidays that have to do with certain foods that can be supportive or challenging for people with migraines, depending on what's going on. Like, find those things and use those as content. Like, that's what I use them for. I use them for content, so I don't have to think as hard because I am really, really not into having to reinvent the wheel on a regular basis. I just
Yeah,
want to make the wheel better.
yeah. So those are part of your resource tools that you use for creating your newsletters,
Mhm.
and then you use your planners for kind of planning out those newsletters, which is great.
Mhm.
Um,
So
yeah.
so the newsletters that I subscribe to, like I said, I subscribe to
Mhm.
70 different industry newsletters. Like, I subscribe to a baking newsletter and a meat packers newsletter and a artificial sweetener newsletter and, all kinds of things. So I have all of those. Those are what usually wind up turning into the food news section for me. And then I also have the calendars. Those don't come to me. Those are resources that I go to, but they're resources that I know I can rely on. I will share another one of the resources that I use on an irregular basis, but I know it's there whenever I need it. Sometimes I need a video for something, or sometimes I need a content idea. TED Talks are amazing. There's
Right.
information there, so you can go find a TED Talk on something. And if it applies to what you're writing about, they've been doing those for, gosh, at least a decade, if not more. And there's not only TED, there's TEDx now. So
Mhm.
you can find so many things if you want to write commentary about it, if you want to attach it to what you're as a support for what you're doing. And again, this is you not having to reinvent the wheel. This is you being able to get things done faster.
Yeah, that's good. So any I don't want to make this a really long talk today. We're almost at 45 minutes already, which has flown
Wow.
by. But anything that you would say to someone who's new on Substack, who's just starting their first newsletter and they're hoping to make this as painless as possible? Besides, watch the whole talk if you didn't already. But what would be your top tips for someone new?
I think the top 3 things that I would encourage someone who's new on Substack to do, and this is making no assumptions about whether you're bringing an audience with you from another platform or if you're literally just like, "Hey, I heard about this thing and I wanna start it," is to figure out why you wanna write on Substack. Like, why do you wanna do this? Who you think you wanna connect with, like, who are the people that you are hoping to be part of? And then the third thing I would tell you is, please don't feel like you have to put yourself on this insanely punishing schedule. Because at one point, I remember seeing things where they were like, "Oh, you need to publish so many articles a week and you need 5 notes a day and three chat things going at the same time. And that's a full-time job right there. And unless you have like 500 paying subscribers, that is not going to be sustainable. So know your why, know why you're doing this, know your who, because if you don't know who they are, they're not going to know to find you. And then I would say, especially in the beginning, publish on a schedule that works for you and be mindful of that. I wound up publishing 5 times a week at first because I was like, "This is great," and I was just sharing so much stuff, but after about, what was it, like 4 months, 3 months, 4 months, I was
Yeah, it
getting
was
yeah, right?
yeah.
I remember, like, crying on your shoulder going, "I don't know if I can keep doing this," and you were like, maybe you don't have to," and so then we surveyed everybody, and they were like, "It is kind of a little much, I'm not opening everything anymore."
Mhm.
And that was when we brought it down to 2. And then at a certain point, we had a conversation about what do I do with these other things that don't fit the newsletter, like sharing a
Yeah.
recipe. Like I don't like putting a recipe as an editorial. I just don't. I did it and it's there and it will exist on my Substack forever, but it's not the ideal way to do it. It's much better because a recipe should be a container. It should be all on its own. And so to put it in there and then say, "Hey, here's this great recipe for you. Go check it out." And then I can also put it in notes if I want to link to that. Like there's a lot of ways
Mhm.
to connect it that make it easier for me, make it easier for my community, and make Substack very happy so that it wants to let people know what I'm doing.
Yeah. Yeah, and for those who joined later, what Mira's referring to just there is publishing items without sending them, which
Mhm.
Substack lets us do, and then linking to them in her regular newsletter so that her regular newsletter that goes out to everyone remains the same consistent format. So we have two types of consistency here, and that is consistent format and consistent scheduling or timing, both of which are really important for our people to know what to expect from us. And
Mhm.
I have been so inconsistent in the last 3 months or so, so I needed this little reminder as well. So,
The one last point I'd like to make too,
yes.
planning ahead is really helpful because it also means you don't stress about certain things. For example, I went on vacation last year. I went on a cruise. I could not publish from the ship. It was not going to work. I knew that was coming because it was on my big wall calendar. So I planned a little extra in advance so that it was ready to go and ready to publish while I was on the ship. So I published 2 newsletters while I was at sea, and everybody was happy.
Mhm.
So that also gives you a little more flexibility in your life if you know you have a big event coming up. Somebody's getting married. You do not want to be sitting there at the reception going, "Excuse me, I need to work on my Substack." Like, that's not cool. So it just really it makes life so much less stressful.
Yeah, for sure. Great. And Mira, now that we've talked about your Substack and everything, what is your Substack address and how can people come and join what you're doing there if
Oh,
they
thank
would
you.
like to?
Yes. Thank you so much. So it's Mira Dessy, Miradessy .substack.com. So pretty straightforward and easy to
Yeah,
find.
great. Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today. And we're almost at 50 minutes. So this is recorded and we will add the links to the different tools and things that Mira was talking
Mhm.
about today. And then we will send it out. So it's going to be probably on Monday or so. It'll actually be available for everyone to access Monday or Tuesday. So
That sounds great. Thank you so much for having me on, Adrienne. I really appreciate that.
yeah, it was great. It was good. I like having people on occasionally to talk about things that I'm not an expert in, and that I can learn from too. So it's all good. All right.
Yay.
Thank you for joining me, and thank you everybody who tuned in today. Hey.
Bye, folks.
Bye for now.